Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second half of the 1.1 Zenless Zone 0 banner, taking a look at Jane Doe. Let's go through this banner and really decide whether or not Jane Doe or even her W engine is a good polling option for someone like you. And if you do enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and check out the rest of the channel for any other videos you might find interesting. We also do have a Discord where you can join and we have a lot of fun in there talking with all of our members. Now, on to the video.
So, as Rift already was talking about, the first character we want to talk about, and I guess the only character on these banners, is going to be Jane Doe for Zenless Zone 0. Now, she's going to be following the weapon, or the idea, kind of weapon type of Anomaly. So, that's kind of the idea and focus. She's going to be a physical unit, and a lot of people are actually thinking about pairing her with a character that's been on the standard banner, Grace, as well as some other Anomaly units. Considering a lot of what she's going to want to do, usually you're going to want to pair her as the main DPS, if you will, for the team. And the idea is that with her creating a lot of Anomaly for physical buildup, you're also going to have another unit in the team as well, creating either similar more physical buildup or another character that could just do other type of Anomaly buildup as well. And that's why Grace can come into play here. In a basic sense, let's go ahead and jump right into her basics, her dodges, and everything like that. We'll try to go pretty quick over this just to give you a general idea of kind of how she works. So in her basic attacks, you obviously have your normal amount of basic attacks that you do, but there is a part of her thing that basically you can jump into called Passion. When Jane triggers perfect dodge or a defensive assist, or she performs a move that deals damage to the enemy, she accumulates Passion Stream. Upon reaching maximum Passion Stream, Jane enters the Passion state. And while in the Passion state, Jane's physical Anomaly buildup rate is increased by 25%. Additionally, if Jane's Anomaly proficiency exceeds 120, each point raises her attack by 2 to a maximum of 600. In the Passion state, Jane's skills that deal damage consume Passion Stream. Activating a perfect dodge or defensive assist regenerates Passion Stream, and Jane exits the Passion state when all of her Passion Stream is consumed. As you can basically see here, the idea is basically to just do a bunch of damage over and over again to then get this huge boost to personal physical Anomaly buildup rate. Also keep in mind that even with her build as a character, you're still going to want to go even more into Anomaly proficiency, because turning it basically as a character, you're turning Anomaly proficiency into attack, very much like Ching Yi does with Impact, turning that into attack as well. So it's a lot of things here. You're going to be majorly using a lot of her basic attack damage to do most of the damage against the characters. That's kind of how we're getting to see, at least very similar to some other characters as well that have come out in the game so far. She also has a part of her kit called Cao Cao Jump, which is a basic attack. Basically, once you enter into the Passion state, Jane uses one of her basic attacks, which is the Cao Cao Jump now, and those basically change your normal attacks into these basically different types of damage instead, which they are going to have higher multipliers than your normal hits outside of the Passion state. So making sure to get yourself into the Passion state is the basically major reason of how you're going to do things. So either using a defensive assist to basically jump her in, or even a dodge counter, stuff like that, is going to get her into the idea, or a perfect dodge is going to allow her to get into Passion Stream, which is then going to help her get better enhanced basic attacks to then do more damage, as well as more and better Anomaly buildup. That's the kind of idea when looking at her as a character. And with her, special attack, it is kind of helpful. You're just doing a bunch of just physical damage, which once again allowing you to just build up a lot of extra attacks and a lot of extra buildup. Once again, mainly trying to make sure that you're trying to get those basic attacks into the Passion Stream to then go into basic attacks that are doing more damage. All of that being said, there's a lot of things. Her chain attack is also extremely useful. When you use a chain attack and it is triggered, select a character that you want to activate. It weaves between and slashes enemies in a large area in front of Jane, dealing massive physical damage, and Jane directly enters into the Passion state upon activating this skill and gains max Passion Stream, which, as you guys know, getting the maximum Passion Stream is then going to allow you to go into those Cao Cao jumps, getting a bunch of that damage, just a lot more. And obviously, that's the whole point of her kit, is just making sure that her basic attacks are doing a lot of damage. In terms of additional abilities and other characters we can look into in the future, when one character or another character in your squad is an Anomaly character or shares the same faction as her, Jane's physical Anomaly buildup rate is increased by 20%. And when the enemy is already suffering from an attribute Anomaly, Jane's physical Anomaly buildup towards the target is increased by an additional 15%, which is why you usually want to have a different type of element putting Anomaly on the character. For instance, talking about another character like Grace, for instance, who is an Anomaly unit but is a different Anomaly unit, basically Jane actually gets a buff because of that for her own personal physical anomaly buildup. All that being said, that's kind of the idea of how you want to use things, using basically other characters to buff herself.
Yeah, she definitely does seem like a very interesting character. I like all the anomaly buildup that is in there, and so that's very interesting to think about. Now, looking at her weapon though and seeing what this does, this is called Sharpened Stinger, and assuming that it's Refinement 1, the ability is as follows. Upon activating a dash attack, you will gain 1 stack of Predatory Instinct. Each stack of Predatory Instinct increases the equipper's physical damage by 12% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. This effect can trigger once every 0.5 seconds, and repeated triggers reset the duration. When entering combat or triggering Perfect Dodge, gain 3 stacks of Predatory Instinct immediately. While Predatory Instinct is at maximum stacks, the equipper's anomaly buildup rate increases by 40%. So it does seem pretty good. You're getting that anomaly buildup rate, just more damage for your physical attacks with Jane Doe, but also something that did come to my mind while reading this is there's really no other character that can use this except for Piper, because it's already so specific. First off, it has to be an anomaly character, and out of physical damage dealers, Jane Doe and Piper are the only 2 that fit that role right now. And I think it's going to be a hot minute until we see another anomaly physical unit, especially we just got a 5-star in Jane Doe and Piper does exist. So I would imagine it's going to be a very long time. So like a lot of weapons go, or W engines in this case, I would only be pulling the W engine if you are getting Jane Doe first, just because Piper probably doesn't need this. Is it going to be great for Piper? I mean, yes, on paper, it's going to be very good for Piper, but I just don't think it's worth it. And Piper has some pretty good options, not to mention a lot of the A-tier characters in Zenless have some really good A-tier options for W engines that also just really fit their aesthetic.
Yeah, very true. And looking at, Piper as well, the anomaly proficiency on the main stat might not be exactly what she wants either, so just keep that in mind when you're actually looking to pull the W engine for either her or obviously for Jane Doe. Now, let's go ahead and jump into our summary. Now, we're going to be just talking questions. We've already gone over the character kits. We've gone over the banners. We can get those out of the way. Now, we can get a little bit more kind of chillax area, right? And so, I guess the first question we have to come up with is, do you need either character on your account? All right, basically, in this sense, because this is just Zenless and there's only one character on the banner, do you actually need Jane Doe? I think, honestly, in my personal opinion, attack units are way easier to kind of be with, if you can get my drift, you know what I mean, Rift. It's a lot easier to build a team around someone like, basically any of the other characters, Ellen Jo or Zhu Yuan. It's a lot easier to build a team around them. But with Qingyi, obviously, the only reason you would get her is if you really kind of already got Zhu Yuan. And now with Jane Doe, and yeah, she could work with Grace and possibly some future characters. It's just a very specific team. And it's a very interesting team, so I'm not really sure if she's necessary on really any account. Also, there are already some pretty good physical attack units in the game. I know she's not attack, but I think the idea is like a damage dealer, a main damage dealer in the team. I think that's the idea you kind of want to look for. So in my personal opinion, characters like Nekomata, if you could get them, characters like Billy, if you have some good constellations on them, or Mindscapes. Honestly, I think they are already pretty good, kind of characters that already do the job well enough. I'm not really sure, in my personal opinion, that she's really worth it.
Next, let's talk about what kinds of teams are you trying to build on your Zenless Zone Zero account. Now, I would imagine most of you guys, or even if you are a new player, you probably pulled Ellen Jo, or if you saved on Ellen Jo, maybe you pulled Zhu Yuan, and if you saved there, maybe you just pulled Qingyi. So you probably already have these teams you had been going for, but if you have been saving from the beginning, I think Jane Doe could be a potentially good character to start a new team with and try to go into something that works a little bit more specifically with that anomaly buildup that we've been talking about, instead of just kind of straight attack scaling and just going for personal damage. Yes, Jane Doe looks like she is a damage character, obviously, but she's not one that's very selfish. I think she does kind of need another character, like you mentioned, Vixen, like Grace. She wants that other anomaly character of a different element, so she is getting a lot out of her core skill and getting that extra anomaly buildup. And so one of the first teams that came to my mind with 3 characters was actually using Nekomata. I know you mentioned that earlier, because Nekomata really likes the anomaly buildup, and when she does get that anomaly buildup, she gets more of her skill damage. It's like by 35% or whatever, and that's really good for Nekomata. So if you use Nekomata, Jane Doe, and then for your last character, another anomaly character that is a different element so that you're getting that anomaly buildup for Jane Doe. Maybe someone like Grace, Nekomata wants another physical, which you already have because of Jane Doe. So you don't have to worry about like having another cunning hair. Jane Doe helps Nekomata, and I think that other anomaly character is going to help Jane Doe. And while Grace may seem like she's the only character, because you don't really want to use Piper with Jane Doe because she's the same element, and at that point that's just a mono physical team, which I don't really know if that's going to do too hot. Yes, you're going to get the anomaly very, very fast because that's all you're throwing at the enemy. But if you want to help out Jane Doe, I would really suggest using Grace. And I hope that maybe in the near future, one of our next new 5-stars will be an anomaly unit of a different element. So that character, whoever that may be, would probably be really good to use with Jane Doe. So if you haven't pulled Ellen Jo or Zhu Yuan and you just pulled Jane Doe or you're planning to, I think I would look next for just another anomaly unit that can pair really well with her, because I think it's kind of like she's kind of a sub DPS, dual DPS, where she really harmonizes with another unit, kind of like what we see in Genshin with Raiden Yaimiko, especially early on. They just really harmonize together. Yes, they're damage dealers in and of themselves and by themselves, but when you put them together, it's just really comfortable. And there's a lot of dynamic duos in a lot of the other games. I mean, you have Nervalette Farina as another one, and Star Rail, you have Firefly Ron May. They just go really well together. Now Ron May is more of a support, I know, but my point is, with Jane Doe, I really think you should save for another anomaly unit in the future, probably.
I agree. I think I totally agree with you. And to bring a Star Rail, connection here, we can talk about Blade and Jing Liu for 2 damage dealers that work really well together.
Yes.
But I think, going right to the next question though, is do you really need the W engine? I mean, in general, when looking at all the other W engines, this W engine is amazing. I'm not really sure, my personal opinion. You know, when I look at W engines, I kind of am always getting ready to pull for the 5-star if I'm going to get the 5-star character. So for me, it's a little bit different because I have to kind of think a little bit beyond that. But there are already some pretty good anomaly, things already there. Rainforest Gourmet could still be used. It's anomaly proficiency as a main stat, and that's obviously going to be very helpful for you. You're going to basically get an attack increase if you consume some energy. So using her, ultimate basically is going to help you do that. So I think that's a good, W engine you could run instead. I know that technically something like Electro Lip Gloss, I know, is the weapon that you would use for Grace, actually, usually. And, someone, you could use that as well, and that's going to be nice as well, because if enemies are afflicted by an attribute anomaly, then the Equipper's attack is increased. And we're seeing that more and more, that basically as long as you're applying consistently a good amount of, that idea of putting on an anomaly on something, then you should be fine. So I think all in all, I don't feel like the W engine's really worth it. I think it's an amazing W engine, and if you can, definitely go for it. And it'll bring your Jane Doe to the next level. But if you're a free-to-play and you can only get Jane Doe, and because you want to get this next future anomaly character that Rift was talking about, then in my personal opinion, it's not necessary to make her the best thing ever, or you kind of have to make her work. I think it's just fine without it.
Right. And I think I would totally agree with that. And to kind of give it some more context, I feel like it's what you want to do with like Kafka, right? If you pull Kafka and Star Rail, you're doing yourself a favor if you actually pull Black Swan before pulling Kafka's Light Cone, because having that other character to complement is so much better than pulling the weapon. And so with Jane Doe's case, I think waiting for that anomaly character, whoever's next, or even if it's a 4-star, I just think that's a lot better than getting the personal upgrade, because Jane Doe's just going to want that other character, right? So I would totally agree with that. Now let's talk about our last thing, looking at the cinemas, or Mindscape cinemas, whatever you want to call them. We're going to kind of look at 1 copy of Jane Doe versus looking at if you have 2 copies or 3 copies, because those first 2 extra copies of a character, usually they could be amazing, out of this world, and sometimes they're not worth it. So when looking at the first Mindscape cinema, this is called Crime Council, and it states as follows. The maximum uses of basic attack Cao Cao Jump are increased by 1. And while in the Passion state, Jane's physical anomaly buildup rate increases by an extra 15%, and each point of Jane's anomaly proficiency increases her damage by 0.1%, up to a maximum increase of 30%. So it's pretty solid. It's a good damage upgrade. It's all focused on Jane Doe. This isn't like really game changing or anything like that, but let's look at the second one real quick as well. This is called Adapt to the Environment. This states that when Jane's attack hits an enemy in the gnawed state, or when any squad member triggers assault on an enemy in the gnawed state, 15% of the enemy's defense is ignored. Additionally, when assault damage triggers a critical hit, the crit damage dealt is increased by an additional 50%. So both of those look pretty good, but Vixen, what are your initial thoughts when looking at these two Mindscape cinemas?
Well, I think the idea for personal, right, if we're talking about the nod state, which we didn't really get into too much, but basically if you look at her core passive, as soon as Jane hits an enemy, they go into the nod state. So that's why I really didn't talk about it, because it's very easy to go into. And also, if any squad member triggers assault on an enemy in the nod state and causes the flinch effect duration is extended by 5 seconds, and then assault damage basically has a chance to crit at 40% crit rate and 50% crit damage. And then basically then anomaly proficiency is turned into crit rate for the character, for obviously Jane Doe. There's just a lot of extra stuff. Basically, all you need to know, it's very easy to get the characters into the nod state, and it's obviously very easy as well to, if you have multiple, obviously like Rift was talking about before, if you have someone like another physical unit, for instance talking about Nekomata with Jane, then you could actually get enemies into assault very easily and very quickly, allowing for more damage. So I think if you have another character like Nekomata or something like that with Jane, I think that, second or third copy, I guess, the second extra copy, really does do well, or the Cinema 2 or Mindscape 2 or whatever you want to call. I think that is definitely more enticing. Now, do I think that it's worth basically possibly 180 pulls after getting the first M1 or the first C1? I'm not really too sure about it. Personally, for me, I think honestly, I think we both can agree Jane Doe looks great at just one copy. But if you're looking to get more, I really do like the first one more, because for the second one, it looks nice, and the defense ignorance is really good, and the crit damage is 50% increase. So once again, I think it really depends. If you have another character that can trigger assault, then that's kind of the idea of when you want to go after that second Mindscape for me.
Yeah, kind of like you're saying, they're nice upgrades, really just for Jane Doe's damage, and when you get the second Mindscape Cinema, also just kind of potentially increasing other physical damage dealers, whether that's Nekomata or even a more free-to-play team would be using Billy as your DPS, let's say. So there's some options there to use that, but for me as well, it's not really worth it. All those like 180 pulls potentially, that's just not worth. I'd rather just stick with one copy of Jane Doe, and if you're gonna think about pulling any more after one copy, I would sooner just pull the W engine. Or just wait for that next anomaly character, heck, any other character, because I don't know, these Mindscape cinemas don't seem game-changing enough or even necessary for the endgame content, potentially.
I totally agree. I think, honestly, like you said, just keeping it at M0, we're so early in the game, I kind of want to stay away. The reruns are going to come quick as well, so I think it is going to be best for people to take some time to just play the game, enjoy the game, grab new characters, grab W engines, rather than going after Mindscapes.
Agreed.
Well, we hope that this video could help you decide on whether this character or W engine coming up with the next banner are for you. As always, if you have any questions, any comments, or anything you guys want to say down below, if you guys have any ideas about Jane Doe or kind of a little bit more what you want to see, go ahead and let us know down in the comments. And obviously, as well, make sure to like and subscribe and check out the Discord that we have as well. Thank you guys again for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.